commuter. What we're learning about his rap sheet and his previous run-ins at the border, of which there are many in both categories. Good morning, everybody, on a Monday. Familiar story here. I'm Bill Hemmer.
Unfortunately.
Yep, alive in New York City. How you doing?
That's what I was just thinking. It's unfortunate to start the week like this.
100%.
We'll get you to the news. I'm Dana Perino, and this is America's Newsroom. This is an awful thing that happened during Friday's rush hour. DHS identifying the suspect as a twice-deported illegal immigrant. Investigators say he forced his way onto the train while drunk. He started a fight with a passenger and then stabbed that passenger with a large knife. That victim is hospitalized and in stable condition.
So if this sounds familiar, you are not wrong, because the same thing happened a few months ago in the same city on a train. An attacker stabbing a young woman to death on that commuter train in Charlotte. The suspect identified as a mental patient with more than a dozen prior arrests there.
President Trump reacting on Truth Social. He says another stabbing by an illegal migrant in Charlotte, North Carolina. What's going on in Charlotte? Democrats are destroying it like everything else, piece by piece. Jonathan Serrie live from Charlotte this morning. Hi, Jonathan.
Good morning, Data. Oscar Solorzano is scheduled to appear before the judge at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Authorities say he is an illegal immigrant from Honduras who was deported during the Trump administration in 2018 and deported again during the Biden administration in 2021, only to return both times. He has a prior conviction for robbery and prior arrests on multiple charges, including aggravated battery. Now, this is the second time in less than 4 months that a repeat offender has been accused of stabbing someone on Charlotte's light rail commuter transit system. Back in August, a U.S. citizen with a long criminal rap sheet was accused of fatally stabbing Irina Zarutska, a Ukrainian refugee. So after this second attack on Friday, many transit passengers are on edge.
My husband missed that train by, one stop and didn't get on there, and that's crazy. We should not have to feel like we are one stroke of bad luck away from being the next victim.
Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy posted on social media, apparently the death of Irina Zarutska wasn't enough. What is it going to take for the Charlotte mayor to remove violent criminals off the streets and protect her constituents? The time to act is now. Mayor Vi Lyles, a Democrat, says the city has invested heavily in increasing security on the transit system, and the police department is increasing its presence in high pedestrian traffic areas during the holidays. However, the mayor says there are several aspects of public safety that are outside of the city's jurisdiction, including immigration policy and enforcement. And Dana, ICE has lodged an arrest detainer to keep Solorzano behind bars, but Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says there is no guarantee that local authorities will honor it. Bill and Dana?
All right.
Jonathan, hang with us one moment here. I think when a lot of viewers heard about this story, they thought it involved a woman who was a Ukrainian migrant and a refugee from Ukraine who was living in Charlotte. That's not the case here. What have you heard from the mayor's office?
Yeah.
What is the issue with crime and these repeat offenders being on the street?
Yeah, well, that's something that's a back and forth between the Republican Trump administration and the Democratic mayor here in this city. The mayor is going to argue that this is just an unfortunate series of events and that she and the new police chief sworn in just on Friday are beefing up patrols in the city, both on the transit system, but also during the holidays in these high traffic pedestrian areas to fight crime. The Trump administration is saying that the city is just not being tough enough on repeat criminals and in particular on illegal immigrants. ICE was here conducting a crackdown, Operation Charlotte's Web, they called it, in November, and the Trump administration complains that the city was not assisting. The mayor argues that immigration enforcement is outside of the city's jurisdiction, but the Trump administration argues we're not asking the city to arrest criminal illegals, but we're asking for intel. We're asking for their assistance and support, and that's something the Trump administration says they are not getting, Bill.
What's interesting, Jonathan, is to think about if they had cooperated. This is a hypothetical. If they had cooperated, it is possible that they would have found this man, this suspect, and he wouldn't have been able to actually commit this crime because he would have been already in custody.
Everyone wishes that this man had been in custody. Of course, it's Monday morning quarterbacking to say whether additional support from the city would have brought him in custody, or on the other side saying, look, it shows that this ICE crackdown didn't work. They never got this guy. Unfortunately, this has become so political, but then you look at these innocent victims, a man who's still in the hospital, thankfully in stable condition, but very seriously injured, and very sadly, this Ukrainian refugee who had been hunkered down in bomb shelters during the Russian invasion, coming to the U.S., trying to establish a new life, only to be randomly attacked and killed on a train here in Charlotte.
Thank you, Jonathan, and we'll follow that court appearance today. Appreciate that in Charlotte. I'm Charlotte. The spotlight's going to be on you now. Here is his immigration history. Illegal alien out of Honduras, deported in 2018, deported in 2021. Previous convictions: robbery, illegal reentry, previous arrest, aggravated battery, destroying evidence, resisting arrest, using a false ID. That is an issue there. The border czar, Tom Homan, once again on the illegal immigrants who came to this country, initially under the Trump administration, was deported, came back under Joe Biden. Here's Tom Homan.
These are more than 2 million people who crossed the border under Joe Biden and got away. They weren't fingerprinted. They weren't vetted. They're criminal aliens. Could be from a terrorist-sponsored country. So over 2 million. So this is what President Trump's committed to. We're working with ICE and DOJ to locate every one of these criminals and remove them from this country. That would not have happened if Joe Biden or Kamala Harris was president. President Trump's a game changer.
Okay, that's Tom Homan. With us now is DHS Secretary, the former acting Chad Wolf. Sir, good morning to you. As we reflect on Charlotte, we were given some news here in New York City at the end of last week that our incoming mayor is not going to enforce the way the Adams administration has enforced the homeless encampments. And I don't know where that goes, but he's also warning immigrants the following on what their rights are, as he says, if approached by ICE. Roll this now. Mamdani, watch.
If ICE does not have a judicial warrant signed by a judge, you have the right to say, I do not consent to entry, and the right to keep your door closed. ICE is legally allowed to lie to you, but you have the right to remain silent. If you're being detained, you may always ask, am I free to go, repeatedly, until they answer you.
Okay, how's that going to go, sir?
It's incredible. Obviously, he's rolling back the cooperation that New York City currently has with ICE and with DHS, and he's going to join the long list of places like Chicago and LA and others that continue to release illegal aliens into their communities. But that video, is he doing a similar video to know your rights if you're stopped by the NYPD? Of course he's not, right? And ICE is a law enforcement agency just like any other law enforcement agency, and they also have rights. And their right is to enforce immigration law, and they will continue to do that, whether that's in New York City or anywhere else.
Yeah, so we are expecting some clashes in January. I think there's no doubt about that. We wish it wasn't so, but I think that he's setting it up, and it's almost as if Mamdani wants that. I wanted to also ask you about this because I get the New York Times on the weekend, and there's this big feature story yesterday. Long, it was so long, about the things Biden did wrong on immigration. Now, this is a year, maybe 5 years too late, and they uncovered this memo. Okay, this is call for number 4. There was a memo to Biden that said this is going to be a disaster if you don't get a handle on it. Chaos was the word the advisors had used in a memo during the campaign. They offered a range of options to avert that crisis by better deterring migrants. Mr. Biden seemed to grasp the risk, but he and his top aides failed to act on those recommendations. Now, I feel like everybody who watches us, everybody knows that. It is kind of shocking that the New York Times would give the dedication now to all of this when the damage is already done.
Well, that's exactly right. Where was the New York Times reporting 4 years ago or 3 years ago when we were in the midst of the worst border crisis imaginable, and you had the Biden administration, you had the president himself saying, we're doing everything that we can do. Legally, we're doing everything, and the border is getting better. And I think most Americans just looked at that and said, you're absolutely crazy. It's getting worse and worse and worse. And so whether it was President Biden, which we know probably wasn't making a lot of calls, but the people around him, his senior advisors inside that White House, the secretary at DHS, they were making decisions every day. And every day that they had to make a rational decision that put the American people first, the interest of first, they chose to go down the other route. And it allowed 15 to 16 million undocumented illegal aliens into the United States, many of them criminals. And we are just now digging out from that. And we're seeing the consequences of that as well today.
Chad, thanks for coming on. We'll talk again.